in the fifth section of statistical mechanics, and this is the last section. Herein, we are going to discuss again quantum statistics, this time Fermi-Dirac statistics. We are going to deal with fermions, application of Fermi-Dirac statistics to some problems, and numericals. In Maxwell-Boltzmann's statistics, particles are distinguishable from each other. Thus, if two particles change energy states, a new state is generated. We have seen that. In Bose-Einstein's statistics, particles are indistinguishable from each other. Interchange of two particles will not generate a new state here. In Fermi-Dirac statistics, we have one more enforcement in addition to the one we have with BE. Thus, in Fermi-Dirac statistics, particles are indistinguishable from each other. Only one particle can be accommodated in one state, and interchange of two particles will not generate a new state. So the only enforcement here to be highlighted is only one particle can be accommodated in one state. We shall pick up the example that we have discussed in the case of BE statistics. Let us suppose that we have four particles A, B, C, D to be distributed in two cells, say X and Y, and we shall pick up a macro state X equal to 3, Y equal to 1. It means that in X cell we have 3 molecules and in Y cell we have only 1 molecule. Now, in Maxwell-Boltzmann's statistics, we have these particles distinguishable, and this particular macro state has 4 microstates, corresponding microstates. In Bose-Einstein's statistics, all particles are identical and they are indistinguishable. So all 3 particles can be named as AAA, placed in X cell, and only 1 particle in Y cell. In this fashion, we have 3 balls in one cell and 1 ball in second cell. Here, the number of microstates corresponding to the same macrostate is only 1. Now, in Fermi-Dirac statistics, let us consider the same problem. The restriction is that in a cell, we can accommodate only 1 particle. Let us suppose that one cell is subdivided into 4 equal cells, and we have to distribute, the cell name is X, so we have to distribute 3 particles in 4 cells. So the number of distinct ways in which 3 particles can be distributed in 4 cells, the number of possible ways, distinct ways, are 4. Similarly, we have to distribute 1 particle in each cell, and therefore we have 4 different ways in which it can be done. Now here, the possibility of having 2 particles in one cell, it is not permitted in FD statistics. Therefore, we have 4 and 4 ways of doing things for X cell and Y cell respectively. If we want to talk this thing together, we have 4 into 4, 16 ways of having distribution in X and Y cell simultaneously. Now, we can generalize this issue. Consider n particles, n identical and independent particles. These n particles are divided into groups or levels. Let us suppose that n1, n2, n3 and so on, ni particles are the groups whose energies are E1, E2, E3 and so on. Gi are the cells, degeneracies, or you can call statistical weight. Gi means for ith level. Thus now we have E1, E2, E3 and so on, EI energy levels, G1, G2, G3 and so on, GI degeneracies, N1, N2, N3 and so on, Ni occupancy number. In FD statistics, particles are indistinguishable, no distinct ways. Therefore, each cell restricted to contain only one particle. Sum of energies of all quantum particles constitute total energy of the system. Now we have Ni indistinguishable particles to be distributed in Gi distinguishable levels. These levels, these cells are distinguishable. They have address. Every cell have different address. Now the restriction is that only one particle is in one level. That is a restriction. That is a new thing that we are going to accommodate, and that gives birth to new statistics. That is, we are going to call Fermi-Dirac statistics. Here, you have particle equal to number of cells, or sometimes cells can be more. So Gi greater than equal to Ni is one of the restrictions that we can put forth. The sum of energies of all particles in the different quantum groups taken together constitutes the total energy of the system. The same thing we are repeating. Ni particles in Gi cells can be accommodated in following ways. We first place first particle in ith level in Gi different ways, because Gi are the total number of seats available. For placing second particle, one more thing is that one particle per cell is our restriction that we are going to follow in future course. For second particle, we have Gi minus 1 left ways and so on. For Ni particles to be placed in Gi ways, we have Gi into Gi minus 1 into Gi minus 2 and so on till you exhaust all the particles plus 1. This is equal to Gi factorial upon Gi minus Ni factorial. The permutation among identical particles do not give distinct distribution. So as the particles are indistinguishable, we have to eliminate Ni factorial ways which are not distinct ways. So we need to divide this quantity by Ni factorial, and therefore we have the quantity Gi factorial upon Gi minus Ni factorial into Ni factorial distinct ways. Total number of distinct ways of placing N1, N2, N3 occupancy number in E1, E2, E3 energy levels with G1, G2, G3 degeneracy can be written as multiplicative summation Gi factorial upon Ni factorial into Gi minus Ni factorial. That number is capital G. The probability for specific state will be proportional to G. So proportionality sign we have to account for in terms of a constant, and W is equal to pi summation multiplicative summation over I Gi factorial upon Ni factorial into Gi minus Ni factorial into constant. Taking log on both sides, I have dropped writing that because in derivative this constant is going to get eliminated. Taking log on both sides, we have multiplicative summation replaced by additive summation, same quantity, Gi factorial upon Ni factorial into Gi minus Ni factorial. Now employing log on both sides, we have log of Gi factorial minus log of Ni factorial minus log of Gi minus Ni factorial. Here we have to differentiate this equation to find most probable distribution. So taking del on both sides, and del of a constant number Gi will be 0. Moreover, log of x factorial, we can write x log x minus x, and therefore we have to work out del log of ni factorial. So we have to work del. This is Stirling approximation of log of ni factorial, which is ni log ni minus ni. So here we have product of two quantities. So chain rule is to be applied the way we have applied in the earlier calculations. So ni times first function into derivative of second plus derivative of first into second function. So ni log of ni has derivative 1 upon ni. This ni gets cancelled. So we are left with only del ni. Second quantity is log of ni. Second function into derivative of first will be del ni minus this quantity derivative del ni. So here these two quantities are cancelled, and later on these two quantities are cancelled. So the answer is log of ni del ni. Similarly, we have to work out this quantity by Stirling's approximation. Log of x factorial equal to x log x minus x. Again operating derivative and eliminating same quantities in the numerator and denominator, and later on while performing addition we can eliminate some quantities as appearing on the screen. Del log of gi minus ni factorial is equal to minus del ni log of gi minus ni, and del log w, we have to add the two terms, and the left out quantities are highlighted here and they are to be added, and subtraction means division. So here we are rewriting, you can see the equation in the recap. Summation log of gi minus ni upon ni del ni is equal to 0. Moreover, we have auxiliary equations which are already mentioned in the beginning of the discussion. The total number of particles, they are going to remain constant. Del n is equal to summation del ni equal to 0, and the total energy also remains constant. So del E is also equal to 0, which is summation Ei del ni equal to 0. Applying Lagrange's method of undetermined multipliers, we have linear combination of three equations, and they can be written together as appearing on the screen. The last equation can be further rearranged as we are dropping the summation sign for convenience. Log of ni upon gi minus ni is equal to minus alpha minus beta ei. Taking reciprocal on both sides, we have gi minus ni upon ni is equal to exponential of alpha plus beta ei. So separating out this quantity, gi upon ni minus ni upon ni. So gi upon ni minus 1 is equal to exponential of alpha plus beta ei. So gi upon ni, one is taken on the right hand side, equal to exponential of alpha plus beta ei plus 1. So we have to write equation for ni in terms of gi. So ni is equal to gi upon exponential of alpha plus beta ei plus 1. So this is the Fermi-Dirac distribution equation. Now friends, we shall discuss Fermi distribution function for average occupation energy epsilon, and the Fermi function f of epsilon is equal to 1 upon exponential of epsilon minus mu upon kT plus. Now here mu is the chemical potential, epsilon is the average energy, and the function represents average number of particles at absolute zero temperature. Potential mu we call as mu f, and the Fermi function f of epsilon is equal to 1 upon e to the power infinity plus 1 equal to 0. So here we have substituted absolute temperature T equal to 0, and 1 upon 0 gives rise to infinity, and the sign of infinity is depending whether E is greater or mu is greater. So the first case we consider E is greater, and e to the power infinity will be infinity, and 1 upon infinity will be 0. In case mu is greater than epsilon, in that case for t equal to 0 we have power of exponential function minus infinity, and e to the power minus infinity will be 0, and 1 upon 0 plus 1 will be 1. At absolute zero temperature, the fermions will tend to occupy ground state, but it's not true for all fermions. The enforcement of Pauli's exclusion principle restricts this from happening, and the restriction is that one fermion per energy level. This way, all lowest states will be occupied by one fermion each, and under this condition the gas is said to degenerate. Now the Fermi function, if you plot using Maple or something, some tool which you are comfortable with, you will be able to see the kind of graph like this, and the Fermi temperature we define as EF upon K, and the Fermi function is 1 upon e to the power E minus EF upon KT. Fermi level in metal is the uppermost filled level at 0 Kelvin. So at T equal to 0, we are applying this situation. Now instead of mu, we have EF, and with that formula, when E is less than EF, then E minus EF is negative, and the negative sign attached to infinity, because temperature is 0, 1 upon 0 will be infinity, and this is 1. So this is the state when absolute temperature is 0, and the energy, you can see this is the Fermi energy level. These are all energy levels above Fermi energy level, and these below Fermi energy level. Now we are talking about E less than EF below. So all the states will be filled. So 1 upon 0 plus 1 will be 1, and here the Fermi function has value 1, and all the levels are filled, and the uppermost filled level we call Fermi energy. At the same absolute zero temperature, when E is greater than EF, and you can say E minus EF is positive, and the positive sign is attached to infinity because we are having reciprocal of temperature, and temperature we are considering absolute zero. So in this situation we have e to the power infinity will be infinity, and 1 upon infinity plus 1 will be 0. So here this red arrow indicates the point beyond Fermi energy level, the distribution function, the Fermi function, it vanishes. And at Fermi energy it is intermediate. So here at E equal to EF it is 1 by 2. Here you can see clearly that at E equal to EF we have this quantity 0, e to the power 0 will be 1, and 1 plus 1 will be 2, 1 upon 2 will be 1 by 2. So here this is the calculation. Now we shall discuss some numericals. The first we are going to deal as determine the phase trajectory of a bullet of unit mass fired straight upward with initial speed 392 meters per second. Consider gravity G equal to 9.8 meters square. So in the phasor trajectory, we have to have Q as a coordinate and P as momentum, position, momentum, space we are talking about. The kinematical equations at our disposal are V is equal to U AT plus U plus AT, and S is equal to UT plus half AT square. Momentum P is equal to M into V, but only V will signify the momentum because mass of the bullet. The moment it is fired from the gun, the velocity is 392 meter per second. This is the initial velocity we consider, and the bullet is fired straight vertically upward So that is traveling against gravitation. Up to some distance it will travel, and momentarily it will stop, and then it will start its reverse journey to reach back to the ground at the same place from which it is fired, provided winds are not creating any disturbance. So in terms of our position q equal to minus 1 by 2 gt, g means 9.8 t square. So here we have introduced minus sign because it is traveling against gravity, plus ut 392. So if we are using this formula, s is equal to ut plus half at square. Q is like this. P is velocity because mass is unit. It's not creating any disturbance. So P is equal to at plus u. So acceleration is minus 9.8 into t plus initial speed is 392. So if you generate points at different times, you can generate position and you can generate momentum, and if you plot together, it looks like it is appearing on the screen. The electron temperature of gas discharge plasma in hydrogen is 20,000 Kelvin. Assuming that the distribution of electron in Maxwellian class, find the fraction of electrons that is capable of ionizing natural hydrogen atoms. Ionization energy of hydrogen is 13.5 electron volts. For ionization of natural atoms, electrons must have energies higher than the ionization energy of an atom, and that is 13.5 electron volts in case of hydrogen. So F is equal to 2 upon under root pi under root of epsilon 0 upon kt e to the power epsilon 0 upon kt. So here we can work out epsilon 0 upon kt, and that turns out to be 7.8, and you can substitute it back along with the value of epsilon 0, and here it appears that 0.13% of electrons are capable of ionizing natural hydrogen atoms, neutral hydrogen atoms at a temperature 2000 Kelvin. Here 2000 we have 2 into 10 power 4. Sorry, 20,000 is 2 into 10 to the power 4. A system has just two energy levels in the thermal equilibrium with heat reservoir at temperature 600 Kelvin. The energy gap between the levels is 0.1. We have to find two things. Number one, the probability that the system is in higher energy level. The second part is the temperature at which the probability will be 25%. Now that probability can be expressed by e to the power minus beta e upon 1 plus e to the power minus beta e. You can take e to the power minus beta e common, and by virtue of that you can write 1 upon e to the power beta e plus 1. So beta is 1 upon kt, and you have to substitute the value of k as 3.1.38 into 10 power minus 23. Temperature is 600 Kelvin. By substituting that, we get 6.9. That is the probability for the system is in higher state is about 7%. Now we have to calculate the probability, the temperature at which the probability of distribution is 25%. So here the unknown quantity is t, and probability is known, that is 0.25. So the probability equation we are again considering with t unknown, and this equation can be solved for t, and it appears that t is equal to 2638. So at 2638.37 Kelvin, the population will be 25% in the higher energy state. Now let us deal with another problem. The Earth's atmosphere at sea level consists of 78% of nitrogen and 22% of oxygen by volume. So here we are ignoring the other gases for simplicity of the mathematical calculations. Find the percentage content of these gases at an altitude 8.75 kilometer, assuming temperature of the atmosphere 300 Kelvin. We have the formula, the number of oxygen molecules at height h is equal to number of oxygen molecules at sea level 0 into e to the power minus mgh, mass of oxygen upon kT, mgh upon kT. Similarly, the number of molecules of nitrogen at height h will be equal to number of molecules of nitrogen at sea level, 0 level, into e to the power mgh upon kT. Herein, mass of nitrogen is to be considered. N is the concentration of gases at sea level. So, number of molecules of oxygen at sea level will be 0.22 times N. This total N is not known, but it will be eliminated out. Similarly for nitrogen. So number of molecules of oxygen at height h in that formula, we can rearrange that formula 100 multiplied by 0.22. So it will be 22. 22 n e to the power minus mgh upon kT for oxygen divided by 0.22 n e to the power minus mgh upon kT, m for oxygen, and here it is for nitrogen. Percentage of nitrogen is 78. Now herein we have two formulas, one formula for percentage of oxygen, another formula for percentage of nitrogen. So here you can substitute gravity equal to 9.8 meter per second square. Height in meters will be 8750. Mass of nitrogen is 47.76 into 10 power minus 27 kg. Mass of oxygen is 53.44 into 10 power minus 27. Temperature given is 300 Kelvin. Boltzmann's constant in SI is 1.38 into 10 power minus 23. So this code is of Maple. So by substituting this, we get this equation. Here you can eliminate N and evaluate values. So the oxygen percentage will be 20.04. So about 20% of oxygen will be at the height 8.7 kilometer when we consider it is 22% at the sea level. So the increase is at the cost of nitrogen, obviously. The next question is to determine whether the electron gas in copper at room temperature is degenerate or non-degenerate. So whether the specific number is 1 or more than that, it depends on that. The electron concentration, number of electrons per unit volume, is 8.5 into 10 power 28 per cubic meter. The gas is said to degenerate if the quantity h square upon 2 pi m kT to the power 3 by 2 into density, that is number of particles per unit volume. If it is greater than 1, then we say it degenerates. So let us calculate this quantity. H, let us substitute H 6.62 into 10 power minus 34. Pi is 3.14. Mass of electron is 9.1 into 10 power minus 31 kg. Boltzmann's constant 1.38 into 10 power 23 minus 23, and temperature is 300 Kelvin, standard temperature. This multiplied by the density. So if you work this out, it is 6775, which is obviously greater than 1, and the gas, electron gas, degenerate. Friends, let us deal with an interesting problem which is usually discussed. Consider a staircase with 3 steps. We shall consider 3 steps to be identical, and we have 3 marbles. I mean to say indistinguishable particles. We have to arrange 3 marbles on 3 steps. The steps are of equal height h, and the marbles weigh equal m into g. We have to work out the total energy of the system for possible distribution. Now let us suppose that h is the height, so mgh will be the potential energy of a particle on first step, second step twice mgh, third step thrice mgh. We have to distribute 3 particles. Let us consider that we have 1 particle on each step. So the first step will have 1 particle having energy mgh. On the second step, we have a particle having energy twice mgh, and on the third step we have thrice mgh. Sum together will give us the total energy of the system, that is 6 mgh. The issue is now to have all kind of possible distributions amongst indistinguishable particles. If we have all three particles on the third step, energy will be obviously highest. 3 mgh 3 times will be 9 mgh. And if we like to discuss all possible states, then for indistinguishable identical particles, then on step 3 we have all three particles. Another steps no particles, obviously, because we have to distribute three particles. No particle on first step, 3 particle on second step, no particle on third step. So 300, 030, 003 is one set of distribution. In another state, we have two particles on one step and remaining one particle on one step. So 201, 210, 021. Then 120, 012, 102. So we have two particles on first step, the possible subcases, two particles on second step, possible two cases, two particles on third step, possible two cases. And a common a thing is in which a distribution in which we have one particle on each step. So as the particles are indistinguishable, microstates are only one. Otherwise, this would have had a degeneracy. In the first case, we have three particles on step 1, and obviously the total energy of the system will be 3 mgh. So in this case, 3 times 2 mgh will be 6 mgh, and so on. So this chart shows how the energy will be distributed amongst the possible configurations. Now we shall discuss a situation in which we have a puddle of molecules of gas. They are in a corner of the room, and as the entropy increases, these will be distributed. So with time, these molecules will be distributed, and the equilibrium will be attained, so that after a sufficient long time, homogeneous distribution of molecules will take place. Now it is not possible that they will go again back to the state. So this is what is entropy. So entropy never goes in reverse direction. That is second law of thermodynamics. This is not possible. ds by dt is ever increasing. The second law of motion, Newton's second law, is rate of change of momentum is force. And if we study the possible solutions of sliding of a ball from a curved path, we can have two solutions. So it can either fall in one direction or in another direction. So Newton's law offers solution in which the ball can roll back on the smooth surface on either direction. So Newton's law is reversible, and the law of entropy is irreversible. This is a clash of principles. One principle is reversible and another is irreversible. Both are correct. So is there any quantity that increases one way and decreases another way? What is the entropy? What is the meaning of second law, and why there is an arrow of time? So I'm going a step little beyond the subject of statistical mechanics, but definitely using statistical mechanics, Boltzmann's law. Entropy, we are discussing since the beginning of the topic. It is a hidden information. Why it is called hidden information? Because it is too small to observe and it's too numerous to keep track of it. So by both the folds, it's difficult to unfold that, and therefore I'm calling that as hidden information. Let us learn it through experiment, and the experiment is based on probability, and therefore it is connected to our subject. Let us suppose that we have 64 coins in a box or in a bag, and we throw that bag from one place to another place in the room. And under that situation, we can open the bag and discover which coin is flipped. So, what we call heads and tails, we are going to understand by red color of the coin and blue color of the coin. In this situation, this is a very special case in which we have all heads or red color, and there is one and the only one way in which this configuration can be depicted. Here I am using the monsterity of the machine to depict this experiment to you, and I have arranged the coin in a regular pattern so that we can understand the state. This is not required for performing the experiment. You can throw the coins in the bag, and then you can throw the bag and then open the bag and discover how many coins are flipped. Now, one coin flipped, how many are the distinct possible ways in which we can achieve that? We have 64 coins, so obviously we have 64 distinct ways in which the coin is flipped. So from first to last, we have 64 distinct ways in which coin can be flipped. Now two coins flipped. How many ways we can distinguish, we can depict this? So the number is quite large. It will be 64C2, that is 64 into 63 by 2. Physically, if I want to depict this two coins flipped, so you can roll this coin and generate the numbers, and the number is 2016, quite a large number. Now three coins flipped, 41,664 distinct ways in which you can depict this. Four coins flipped, 6,55,376. Five coins flipped. So here I have shown 4 coins, but the calculation is of 5 coins. 76,24,512. The number is becoming generic. Now in the tabular form you can generate these numbers. So for no coin flipped, unique way, 2 coins flipped, 64 ways, 3 coins flipped, 2016 ways, and the number is generic where you have 32 coins flipped, 2 into 10 power 18. States are numbered, so 33rd number of state in which 32 coins are flipped is 2 into 10 power 18. Entropy of an ensemble collection of discrete states is logarithm of the number of configuration that satisfies the certain criteria, and it is S is equal to K log W. You can prefer a system in which K is equal to 1, and in that case you can write S is equal to log of N. Let's try with the 64 coins experiment in real time. So only one unique way, log of 1 will be 0, so entropy is 0. This is the most ordered state, and as you go ahead you have very special combination, that particular combination of five coins flipped, and we are going towards a state in which we have 32 coins flipped. So you cannot remember which 32. It's difficult to remember the state. So the system will rattle in for a long time in this configuration where 32 coins are flipped, because the number is generic. So will it return back to this state in which two coins are flipped? It's quite rarely probable. And is it possible that we'll reach to a state in which only one coin is flipped? Because those number of states are only 64. So quite less probable. So will you go back to only one no coin flipped state? It is rarely possible, because that has lowest entropy. The system will rattle around in 32 coins flipped configuration for a very long time, and may revert back to one coin flipped or no coin flipped. That is random unexpected event. event, which is known as Boltzmann's fluctuation. So here we have a clash of principles. Second law of thermodynamics, we have entropy ever increasing. We have Newton's laws, reversible. Quantum mechanical laws are also reversible. Then the question is, what is the behavior of entropy? What is the meaning of second law? Is there any arrow of time? Entropy is a hidden information because it's having it's a very small quantity, that is small particles, atoms, molecules, which we cannot observe, and they are too numerous to keep track of. Entropy of an ensemble is logarithm of number of configuration that satisfies certain criteria, or a collection of discrete states of a system, selected collection. So here we have log of s, log of 1 is 0, log of 64 is 4.158, and here the generic number is for 32 coins flipped, and log of 2 into 10 power 18 is 42.139. The equation of motion is a rule that is updating the state of a system. And let us suppose that we have a system in which number 1 is updated to 3, and 3 is updated to 6, 6 is updated to 4, 4 is updated to 2, and 2 is updated to 5, 5 is updated to 1, and the system rattles around this cycle. So this is how the system revolves. After some time, the history repeats. Classical or quantum system is completely deterministic because after some time history repeats and you can track the system. Now let us have a rule in which is not a reversible kind of thing, and we are jumping from state 1 to state 2, state 6 to state 2, 5 to 2, 4 to 2, and 3 to 2. So in every step we are jumping on 2, and the system 2 when jumps updates itself, it goes to 2. So you cannot retrograde. The information is lost. You never know where you came from to the state 2. This is not a good law because we cannot track back, and it is not reversible. The laws of every physical system are reversible, and so is Newton's law and other laws of quantum mechanics. You can retrograde back. The information is never lost. This is known as the law of conservation of information. Information is never lost, never ever lost. In classical mechanics, Loschmidt's theorem takes care of that, and it is called unitarity in quantum mechanics. In the experiment of 64 coins, the equation of motion tells me how the coin will flip. We start with all red coins. Next is not too many coins flipped. Then, then we reach to a system in which 32 coins are flipped, and the system rattles into that state for very, very long time. And it is quite rarely possible that the system will head to a low entropy state, means less coins flipped. In mathematics and physics, a deterministic system is a system in which no randomness is involved in the development of future state of the system. A deterministic model will thus always produce the same output from the given starting condition or initial state. If your physics is not deterministic, we would have not learned it. After rattling around for long time in 32 coins flipped state, 4 coins flipped, then 2 coins flipped, and then 1 coin flipped, can I go back to a single coin flipped or no coin flipped state? Yes, indeed, we can go. And that is known as Boltzmann's fluctuation. So we conclude here this course. Thank you so much for patiently listening up to the last. Hope you find this useful.